everybody! As always, I am your Foxywriter, Brandy Ackerley. And I am so excited today! NaNoWriMo is here! What? So, as of last week, I wasn't sure how I would be counting my progress this month. I have since decided that while I'm editing, I'm going to be counting my words changed. So words written, words deleted, all of those will count. Now, I mean, I won't be counting like every word, of course, because that would be insane. But I can count the differences between chapters. Like if I had 2,000 and then I ended up with like 2,200 instead, I could add like 200 to my word count total. That should work. Yeah. Of course, everything new written, like if I take out a chapter or rewrite one from scratch, yes, those will count completely. And yeah, I'm just going to be counting 50k still. I don't know if I'm going to get to 50k. Like I said, the main purpose is editing, and therefore if I finish the story before 50k, woot! But it might take longer than 50k, in which case I just gotta work even harder. It's all going to work out fine. Now, in addition to editing, though, I'm also going to be hosting at least one sprint stream. I'm going to try weekly, but I'm going to see how many people are interested. I'm going to probably be doing the first one on Twitch on Saturday, but I may do one next week on YouTube, so keep an eye out for that. If I do, it'll be my first one going live on YouTube, so yeah, that's why I'm not doing it this week. I want to do a little bit of research before I jump into streaming live on YouTube. And I haven't really done any, so yeah. I will try and do that this week, in between, actually writing and editing. Okay, so for the streams, though, I'm planning on straight writing. Instead of trying to edit my book. I just haven't decided yet whether I want to work on my epic and mostly unplanned dieselpunk fantasy, based on, like, the life of a former Spanish spy, completely made-up Spanish spy, living in Morocco? Morocco? I don't know how to pronounce that country's name. I apologize. And dealing with German scientists and aliens, or if I want to try and write in my actual epic fantasy world that I have a little bit more planned, and I'm jokingly calling my Samurai Romeo and Catgirl Juliet story. Oh, that one is more planned. It would probably be way easier to write. But the other one's sort of fun too, and I have an idea of where it's going. I just need to figure out plot points, and I don't know. I'll decide as I get closer. November is all about, I don't know, we'll see what happens when I get there. As for the edits of Book 3, which is the main project I'm working on for NaNoWriMo, I have finished storyboarding it. At least as much as I can until I get to talk to my editor, which I'm hoping will be like next week. Probably on, not next week, hopefully on like Sunday. Yeah, but I'm currently working on rewriting my first chapter, and I have a solid timeline worked out for it, so woot, woot. Oh, it looks like this book may actually end up being a bit shorter than my other two novels, which honestly works just as well. I mean, I don't need to have books that are 90k. That's not, I'm not writing to a word count. I'm writing to actually put out a good story. And if that story is a little bit shorter than the others, that's fine. Okay, so currently it's day 2, and my current word count is 845 words added directly to the novel, and another 174 in, like, notes and planning, like, that I did for my storyboarding. So, yes, considering that I missed working on it on the first day of Nano, I'm honestly really pleased with how much I've gotten done. So, you may be asking, you're super excited about Nano, what did you end up doing on, November 1st that took you away from your writing all day? Well, I made my avatar in Vroid originally, but the Vroid that I was using was specifically labeled as a beta. Well, the first stable version was released on October 31st, and I heard the news about 20 minutes before November 1st began. So I essentially spent the first day converting my avatar in and making myself New Year's. Of course, I also had to look at the new options and see what I could do with the program too. Now they have made things way easier, or at least some of the things way easier. They have also made a few things, I don't know if it's more difficult, but it's definitely odd, and some of them are more difficult. So, I mean, it's like 6 to 12 and half dozen of the other type of situation with it. That said, if you've been thinking about wanting to make an avatar for online, and you're like a complete beginner to the tech, it's really beginner friendly for the most part. With my prior knowledge and using mostly presets, I made a friend of mine a new model to like her specifications in about half an hour. And it's adorable. Unfortunately, I won't show the picture because it's officially hers. I have given it to her. And if she ever decides to use it, I will point you over to her Twitch channel. I hope she does. It's adorable. Even if she doesn't, it's fun. Anyways, I will definitely probably end up doing a quick video on how to use it, and I will post that here sometime in the next couple of days. Keep an eye out for it. Since I've been playing around with it, I figure it's just a good thing to show you guys. Now, like I said, I had to convert my avatar in, and that's why I look just a little bit different. Have you figured out what it is yet? I have new ears! Oh, I absolutely love them! They actually have presets for ears, which I will show you in the program. But by looking at the presets and then playing with all the numbers and taking the templates out to play with the colors in the art program, I was able to create them. Oh, I love them so much! They're so pretty! The ears from my old character were pretty much the only part that I hadn't made myself, except for my shoes, which, like I said, I found a pair and they reminded me of a set I had in high school, and oh my god, no, those were my favorite shoes ever. I'm keeping them. But yes, I'm so glad I was finally able to make my own ears. And I love them. I love them. Now, of course, there are a few changes I would still like to make to her. But, I'm gonna be honest, I will probably end up always playing with her. I mean, just like, to make, as my skills improve, I'll learn how, better ways to do things. Which, I mean, hey, I'm looking forward to that work. So she'll always be constantly changing a little. However, I won't be doing any more with her until at least the end of November. Because, no. Now it's nano time. So yes, that's what I've been up to. Okay, and with all that done, let's get to the read-along. Now, in our last chapter, Himiko had spoken to Deckard and told him that he was essentially irresponsible for letting Kazunoha leave town. The two fought, and in the end, Deckard slammed the door in her face and went back to spend the night with his girlfriend. And now, on with the story. Okay, let me just pull up the book here. Perfect! Perfect! Thank you, Reverend, Isashi said, handing the priest the gold. Here's the money for his funeral rites. It was too much for the rites, but the priest would take the extra and look after the details for the boy. If Carlos came looking, he would come to the priest, not her. Thank you, Hunter. The priest gave a nod. He was not a fervent member of our flock, but we will miss him. The prayers will be said, a candle will be lit, and the body moved. I do wish we could have found out what creature touched the body first. I do not know what animal to put on the headstone. She looked hopeful, but Isashi shook her head. She knew that members of the Dreven Sky buried their dead, and watched to see what animals visited the body, believing that they were spirits, taking parts of the soul with them to their afterlife, the same way their creation deity had been killed and put back together to form a different goddess. I'm sorry I could not say Perhaps the surgeon might? She suggested. The sheriff had brought out one of the healers that Isashi didn't know well, half-driven, half-Sien like Isashi herself, to look over the bodies. All she'd done was confirm what Isashi had guessed, that both had fought and died thinking that their wounds were less severe than they had been. Neither body looked as though they'd been picked that much, so perhaps the monster's poison had been more than natural? Something that magically left a scent, scaring away all but the most desperate of scavengers? The woman frowned, but nodded. Thank you. May Tormu guide your soul, and give you peace. Tormu was the Dreven deity of innocence. Isashi nodded and gave a quiet thank you as she turned to leave. She'd heard that Tormu offered hope and peace to those who were world-weary. She grinned up at the sky. Her family had always prayed to Dendemo, the Sienku god of the twilight, and between places. They were on the tail end of twilight now, and if anyone could lead her mind, either from or to trouble, it would be him. For the moment, she decided on trouble, and headed to the Koi. It was busy as usual. Even on days when there were no extra ships in port, it was the most popular bar for people to go to after a long day. People who stayed there tended to find out the latest rumors about what was happening outside of Idan. It was a coveted form of gossip, if you could keep up with it. She looked around for the stranger. He wasn't in the main room, but Himiko was, frowning into a pasta dish. Her friend smiled when their eyes met, and Himiko waved her over. Despite her day, Isashi's mood perked up immediately. Isashi, what are you doing back? I thought you were going to be gone for weeks. Isashi walked over, envious of Himiko's outfit. Her friend was wearing a tight blue shirt with long, loose sleeves that Isashi thought was the most gorgeous thing she'd ever seen. She was even more pleasantly pleased when the chair remained firm as she sat down. The chairs were always a bit lopsided here, but she'd gotten one of the few even ones of the bunch. It was good luck. Perhaps not on the level of a green-eyed tabby mating your gaze, but lucky nonetheless. I had to come back early. I found something... She paused. Less than pleasant. I had to come back to report it. It's taken me all day, and I only just finished dealing with the priest. Himiko's fork clattered out of her hands to the plate. She grabbed the table, as if it were the only thing keeping her from falling off the side of the world. She never looked so panicked at the news. The priest? Which one? Reverend Olivia, from the church on Tasket Street. Why? Isashi touched Himiko's hand. Himiko shuddered and closed her eyes. Olivia, the Dreven's church. Amateri bless us. Amateri was the highest goddess of the Sienku religions, and the patron of Himiko's family. Himiko, what's wrong? She couldn't imagine what she'd done. I thought you might have found Kazunaha out there, Himiko said, her eyes still closed. Himiko, if I'd found your sister out there, I would have taken you aside and told you, not mentioned it just offhandedly like I did. Now where did your sister go? The younger Tanaka had been talking about leaving, of course. Something about finding a treasure? Isashi hadn't thought she would actually do it. On the other hand, it meant that the fellow she was looking for probably wasn't here either. Damn it. Himiko distracted her by sticking out her bottom lip in a pout. Though Himiko tended to the less dramatic, she was acting her annoyance out now. Despite the severity of the situation, she was adorable. Yes, after I forbade her from doing so. She's embarrassing the family name. Himiko drank the remainder of her wine in a gulp. It had been a month since Himiko's birthday, which meant that yesterday would have been Kazunaha's. There would have been no fanfare, no party for her, except for something Himiko may have planned, or more likely what Kazunaha herself had planned. She wasn't the oldest, and didn't have Himiko's burden. When did she leave? Himiko stared at her glass as though its newfound emptiness was a personal affront. Yesterday. I asked the sheriff, and he was on board until I said it was for Kazunaha. He's She's insisting that if I'm worried, I should start the paperwork with Mayor Dieter to take away her autonomy first. But if I do that... She paused, swirling her drink in her cup. Isashi knew how she felt about the mayor. Himiko avoided him whenever she could. Also, if she started with the paperwork, Himiko would be responsible for Kazunoha, essentially for the rest of her life. She wanted her sister safe, not underfoot. Himiko slammed her cup onto the table. They all know that this Richard character is bad news. They just won't do anything about it. She's an adult now. She's able to make her own decisions, is what Deckard said. Can you believe it? That man she left with is a smooth-tongued demon. Kazunoha was perfectly happy before he showed up. Sashi thought happy was a step too far. Kazunoha had never seemed particularly happy, even as a child. Her hand went into her pocket, her fingers brushing the torn note again. Keep the gift, she muttered. That phrasing bothered her more and more as she thought about it. What sort of a person offered other humans as gifts? A sudden chill ran down Isashi's spine. What had Himiko called him? A smooth-tongued demon. What if after killing the men who had come to take him back, he'd decided to pay off his debt to the person who'd owned him by offering someone of equal value? Kazunoha probably didn't have any of the skills that had made Richard valuable, but like her sister, she was beautiful. Had her personality not been so prickly, she would have had her choice of men in Nidan for life, rather than just her choice for the night. Yet, for beauty like that, someone just might conclude that as a debt covered. Isashi? Uh-huh. She pulled her thoughts back to the table. Sorry, what was that? You looked like you were a million miles away, Himiko said. I'm sorry. Do you know which direction they went? Himiko frowned. They were searching for a boat, so they should be staying coastal. They left through the southern gate. Why? Isashi? Can you... She lowered her voice. Can you bring her back? Isashi shook her head. I don't have the authority to do something like that. There would be legal entanglements. Basically, the same reasons no one else will. Himiko's face fell and Isashi let out a breath. She lowered her own voice to a whisper. What I can do as a hunter is go after her, and keep an eye on her. If she gets into any danger out there, I'll be there to keep her safe. Isashi hoped her interference wouldn't be necessary. She didn't know this man, after all. Himiko could just be painting him in a bad light. On the other hand, if that was his plan, she could stop it. Clearly, the people who wanted him back were nearby. Those bounty hunters wouldn't have hired the boy to deliver their letter otherwise. She needed to leave. She glanced out the window, and a cacophony of orange and blue silk assaulted her eyes. She blinked and looked past the outfit to the woman wearing it. Hannah was tall and had the blondest hair of anyone in the village, keeping it cut to the nape of her neck in defiance of the local fashion. She had been a hunter since she was 10, and was even older than Isashi herself. Her clothes were always brightly colored, and she preferred the thinnest silks a hunter could afford. Hannah sashayed over to the table. With a toe, she pushed out the chair and fell into it, leaning towards Isashi. Himiko's lip was curled in disdain. Who? I'm Hannah, dear. One of the hunters, Hannah said dismissively. She may have been talking to Himiko, but her eyes were locked on Isashi. You're back in town early. Nobody in Bar had been paying them much heed, but with Hana's precipitous entrance, they all were now. Isashi realized that she tensed up. So long as she didn't bring Kazunoha back kicking and screaming against her will, no one would care what she did outside the walls. Hannah, this is my best friend, Himiko. If you don't know who she is already, you should. And don't be rude. I came back because I found something the Revered would be interested in, and had to cut my trip short. I'll be heading back out tomorrow. Hannah smiled. You haven't stopped off at your home yet, I presume? Hisashi shook her head. Not yet. Why? Hunter business. I was going to head out and find you tomorrow, but here you are, as though it were fated. Oh? Himiko said. What sort of business? Hannah raised an eyebrow, but then shrugged. Samuel found tracks of something bigger while he was out there. He suggested that we all go out in pairs. Samuel's suggestions may as well have been law for the hunters. He'd been doing this longer than anyone else. Still, going out in pairs was a pain. Necessary at times, but a pain nonetheless. Hannah wasn't a great team player either. The part of the job she enjoyed most was when she got to hunt the monsters, rather than just making sure that the area was safe. Samuel's command also meant that the citizens shouldn't be out either. An even better reason to find Kuzunoha and Richard. Sashi? Himiko hissed. She's right, Himiko. This is hunter business. Hana, if we're going to do this, we need to stay near the shore. A few innocents were headed up that way. Hannah wrinkled her nose. Babysitting? Do we have to? It's part of the job, and you know it. Who? The younger Tanaka, and a traveler. Well, if we must, Hannah said, pushing herself up. What gate will you be at tomorrow morning? She nearly cursed looking out the window. Full night had fallen while she'd been there. A hunter could leave after they'd locked the gates at night, but leaving without resupplying or sleeping would be stupid, and panic wouldn't get her to Himiko's sister any faster. Fortunately, she had everything she would need to resupply herself at home already. Can you supply yourself for this journey? We can meet in the square at second light, Hisashi said. Second light was just an hour or so past dawn, when the sun rose high enough to be seen over the walls and buildings of Idan. Of course, Hannah said, her eyes glittering with eagerness as she stood. It was standard procedure for a hunter to have extra supplies 4 times like this. We can leave via the south gate. Himiko waited just long enough for Hannah to leave the koi. Hisashi? This sounds dangerous. It is. Hunting monsters was never safe. Still, Hisashi was a good hunter. She knew the signs, and she was a survivor. Will you be able to take care of my sister out there? It's my job, Himiko. What about her? She gestured towards the door Hana had left by. Hisashi winced. It's her job too, now, no matter what she thinks otherwise. And in this case, I now have the authority to insist Kuzunoha return to town immediately. Or stay with me, whichever will be safest. Himiko set her mouth in a line. Fair warning, Kuzunoha does not do well with authority. But, thank you. Please, bring her home safe. And that's it. Let me just put the book down. Perfect. Okay, that's going to be it for this week. Now let me know what you're working on for NaNoWriMo. And of course, let me know what you think of the New Year's. Oh, I also reached affiliate on Twitch, so I now have emotes over there. Hopefully I'll be able to show you pictures later on, but I don't really have the camera on this page, so yeah, lots of changes in a short time. I've been busy as heck. Oh, it's all good, but it's oh so frustrating. At any rate, please, if you like what I'm doing here, think about hitting that like button. And of course, you could share or subscribe if you're feeling particularly generous. And I will see you guys later.